All right. Hello, everyone. How is everybody today? What's everybody up to? Hopefully, you're doing some fun nails today, or at least watching some of our YouTube videos here to give you some inspiration and ideas on what nails to do today. So, hopefully, everyone is doing well. Just getting my nails prepped and ready to go here. Give everybody just a few more minutes to jump in to our live stream, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So what I am doing is just, again, getting my nails ready to go here, getting those into the trainer hand. And a lot of times you guys ask me, how do I get the nails with no cuticle area on there? So just really quick, I just want to kind of show that so you guys can see. So what I did on these nails, you can see that there's no cuticle, like big thick cuticle area up at the top. All I do is I just trim that off, and then I file to shape up around that edge. So that way it's just a little bit more, feels a little bit more like a real finger rather than having that big bulky extra plastic at the top there. So that's what I was doing. That's usually what I do when I get my trainer hand ready to go. So let's go ahead and get into our demo today. And what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be applying one of our full cover extra long square nails, because you guys, these are definitely really trendy. So that really long straight square enhancement, you can see these are going to be some beautiful long straight square nails. I'm not putting them on myself today. We did one on myself yesterday, but I'm going to be using those extra long square full cover nails. And then I get a lot of questions as to how do we finish these nails. And on yesterday's design or yesterday's demo, I just did a coat of one of our cream clay colors. On my other nails here, I do just have a regular gel polish color over them. But today I'm going to show you how to apply the slick pour over the top. And that's going to help to give the nails a little bit more durability. So maybe if you're somebody who needs a little bit more strength to your nails, or your clients need a little more strength to their nails, you can use the slick pour to give that extra durability. So let's get into our actual demo here. And you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I see all of the hellos and highs in the chat, so thank you guys. Welcome in. If you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join our community, stick with us, and get free education. So first thing we're going to always do, no matter what service we're going to do, is push back the cuticles. And when I'm pushing back the cuticles, the other thing that I'm also doing at this point is actually a couple of things. I'm kind of assessing those nails. So I'm assessing the nails that the client has, her natural nails. Are they long? Do they need to be trimmed down? Do they need to be shortened? What is their shaping? What is kind of their natural shape? I'm also going to be talking with my client about what service that they're having today. How long do they want their nails? Do they want nails out to here? Do they want just short nails? Do they want just an overlay on their natural nails? Hopefully at this point, you've already scheduled a service for them, so you have a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be doing. But sometimes you do want to still go through a little bit more of a consultation to figure out exactly what they're wanting on their nails. Now today, we're going to be applying a full cover tip. So I like to trim down that natural nail as short as possible. So this way, when I put the tip on, I'm not going to have to worry about that natural nail interfering. And what I mean by interfering is when we put our tip on, let me see if I can show you guys underneath here. So you can see underneath my nails here, again, I do have the full cover tips on, but you can see that, maybe just barely you can see that there is a slight gap in between my natural nail and the tip. Now it is filled in with our tip and jewel adhesive, so that's not an issue, but these tips don't fit 100% down onto my natural nail. They don't fit that C-curve, so that's why we're going to be using our tip and jewel adhesive to adhere these, because it's a little thicker and it's going to fill that in. But that's something that you want to be aware of when you are prepping the natural nails. And the shorter you can bring that natural nail, the less of that natural nail is going to interfere with that tip fitting perfectly onto the nail. I hope that makes sense. But that's why we do take down that natural nail, shorten that up as much as we can. And then I'm just going to go through and just quickly give that nail a shape Today we're only going to be doing one nail, but if I was doing the full set, I would have gone through, trimmed all of those nails, shaped those shape up all of those nails, and then move on to our next step. Now, when you're shaping here, it doesn't have to be a complete perfect shape, but I just like to give it a little bit of a kind of a smooth edge. So it's nice and easy, nothing too crazy. I don't have to spend a ton of time being super particular about those. Somebody's asking what type of nails are these? What I'm using here is our Young Nails trainer hand. Everything that I'm using, all of the products that I'm using today are Young Nails. This is our Young Nails YouTube Live. The products that we're going to be using again are going to be our full cover extra long square tips. So we're going to size out a tip. Now notice I haven't prepped this natural nail. I haven't filed on the surface. I haven't cleansed it. I wait to do all of that until after I size out my tips because I feel like when I'm sizing out, sometimes I may be touching that natural nail. I may be kind of looking and turning, and I want to make sure that I'm prepping that nail after I've sized these out so it stays nice and clean and sanitary. So I'm going to take a look at our tips, and with our extra long square tips, actually let me see if I can zoom out. That's as far out as I can get. There we go. So with our extra long square tips, we have lots of different sizes. So we have, that is, yep, okay. So we have starting at a size 0. You can see on the cover here, it's got your sizes on there. So size 0 all the way to a size 10. So we have a really good variety of sizes. So if you're somebody who has, you guys are trying to get out one of these to show you here. But if you have those extra large thumbs, you can definitely use these on most of your clients. So you've got such a great variety of sizes all the way down to that size 10. So that really small, tiny little tip that you can use. But when we're sizing out, we kind of want to start with the C curve. So we want to check the curve of the nail this way, and we want to find a tip that is going to fit that same C curve. So I actually am going to turn this tip around. You can see where the well is pre-etched, so that's the area that's going to adhere to that natural nail. But if I turn that around, I want to see, let me come in a little closer so you guys can actually see what I'm looking at here. So you want to make sure that the well of the tip has approximately the same C curve as your natural nail. And again, that's one of the reasons that we shorten up that natural nail so that we don't have to worry about that whole free edge interfering with that. So this one is a size 3. You can see there's a little number right in the back of the tip there. I think this is going to be a pretty okay C curve. I can see that it looks pretty okay. But I always like to check a size bigger and a size smaller just to make sure. And, whoops, let me come in. Let me readjust here. There we go. So this one, the size 4, is a little bit smaller. And if I look at my C curve, I can see that the C curve of the 4 is a little bit tighter. So it's a little bit more curved through that well than my natural nail. My natural nail is a little bit more flat. So I'm really looking at this one thinking that this one is probably a little on the small side, but I'm going to just hang on to it just in case. And then I'm going to compare all 3 of these because I'm going to go one size bigger. So we're going to go to a size 2. Now the C curve on this one, that definitely looks like it's much bigger than the nail that I'm going to be putting this on. So I think this is I'm pretty sure this one's going to be too large, but I want to show you guys the other way that I'm going to size these nails, or the other area that I'm going to look at. So once I have that C curve, and I know that my C curve is going to fit pretty well, I'm going to look from side to side. Now you can see that this one, it really hangs off both sides quite a bit. So I know that this one is probably going to be way too big. Let's go to our size. What was our middle one here? This one was a size 3. Let's take a look at the size 3. Now this one, it fits really nicely on that C curve. I can set that right down on the nail. I don't have to put a lot of pressure. If you have to put a lot of pressure and that tip fans out or it squishes down like this, that probably means that that tip is too small. But this one looks like it fits pretty well on that C curve. It does hang off just a little bit on the sides. But I like how this one is fitting the C curve. So again, that one I'm going to hang on to. This one definitely fits better than that larger size, so I'm going to set that larger size aside because I don't think that one's going to work. I think so far I like this one best. But let's take a look at the next size smaller. So again, this one is a size 4. Now this one, it does feel like it's fitting that C curve fairly well. It is fitting side to side, but I do feel like I have to press that down a little bit. Do you see when I press that down how it kind of flares out at the edges? And then it's going to fit really good on those sides. But I don't want to have to press that down. So because I have to press this down, I'm actually going to go back to that bigger size so that it fits my C curve really nicely and I don't have to use a lot of pressure. I don't have to really fan out that tip and add that extra pressure. Because what happens, if you guys take a look from the end, when I press that tip down and I flatten that out like this, what happens is when I let go, it's going to snap back to its original shape. So if I have to press this down onto a natural nail, a lot of times what happens is that nail, after you get that on there, it's going to want to pop back up into its original shape. So that could actually lead to your tip separating or popping back off as you're applying it. So I am going to go with that slightly larger size. This is a size 3. And now we're going to customize it because it fits that C curve really nice. And even if I take a look from, let's see if we can see, look from underneath, there is just a tiny little bit of a gap right in between there, but that's okay because we're going to be using a thicker gel to adhere this. And the gel is going to really just fill in that extra space. So I'm not going to worry about my C curve, but at this point, I'm going to customize this tip a little bit so it's not hanging off the sides. And then I'm going to be applying this tip all the way, almost all the way back to our cuticle area. But do you see how these corners hang off? I'm going to customize these corners so that those aren't hanging off and that the tip isn't hanging off the edges. Now, when we are customizing this, we do want to keep in mind, let me show you what we're going to use. We're going to be using our tip and jewel adhesive, and my container here is getting on the low end, so I just have a little bit left in there. But this is a thick gel, so we have to make sure that we are still leaving a little bit of space underneath that tip so that when we do put it on, we kind of think about that extra space that my gel is going to take up. It's not like a really thin glue where it's just going to, that tip is going to set right down on that natural nail. When we use the tip and jewel adhesive to adhere the tip, it's actually going to bring that tip up just a little bit. So I don't want to file my tip so that those edges are right to the edge of my natural nail, because when I put that tip on with the tip and jewel adhesive, it's going to lift that tip up just a little bit. So we're going to have a gap on that edge. So when we're sizing our tips and when we're customizing, we have to keep that in mind so that we don't file off and customize too much. So when I do my customizing, I actually look to see exactly where that tip is going to set. So again, I'm seeing that it's overlapping my corners quite a bit. So I'm going to start by taking down my corners. And I'm just going to use one of our 180 file buffer combos. So it has a file on one side and then it has a buffer on the other, which I really like to use that when I'm doing my customizing on my tips, because I'm going to use that file edge to customize. And then let me show you here in just a second. You can kind of see how there's that little bit of a frayed edge right up top there. Then I can just turn my file over to the buffer side, and I can use that buffer side to clean up that little frayed edge. So it just makes things a little bit easier so you don't have to go looking for a different file or your buffer. You have everything all there in one. So again, just customizing those corners a little bit, rounding those out, buff off that little frayed edge. And then let's check this one more time. Now, do you guys see how much dust I'm actually getting onto this nail? I went through and I kind of dusted it off, but this is the reason that I don't prep that natural nail before I size out my tips, because if I had prepped this nail, removed the shine and cleansed it and applied my bonder, this nail would have gotten dust on it again, so I would have had to basically repeat that process. So that's why I wait until after I customize my tips to prep that natural nail. But now you can see that My well fits a little bit better right up into that cuticle area. I think it's still just a little bit wide here on the sides. So I'm going to take down a little bit more of the sides, and I'm going to turn that nail kind of on the edge and just straighten out that side a little bit. And remember, just a little bit at a time. So I would say um, go in phases. So a little bit at a time and then check. And then if you need to take a little bit more, you can check again. But go through, remove that little frayed edge again, get that frayed edge, and then we'll check one more time. Let's see how that's fitting. So I think that's going to look pretty good. Looks like it still might be hanging off a little bit, so I'm going to take off a little bit more here. Now notice that I don't just file one side. I file a little bit from both sides because this way I'm going to be able to make sure that my tip is still going to go on straight. If you just file off of one side, your tip is going to end up lopsided. So we want to make sure that we're taking about the same amount from both sides. And once more, we'll use that buffer edge to smooth out any little frayed edges there. All right, I think we're good there. Let's do one more check. Okay, so now this looks really good. So now you can see that it's fitting up into that cuticle area really nicely. And if I turn from side to side, it's hanging off the edges just ever so slightly, ever so slightly. It's not all the way down to here, but it's not right at that edge. It's just barely coming past that edge down to here. And that's exactly what we want because again, when we put our tip and jewel adhesive underneath there, the tip is going to lift up slightly, so our tip, I think, is going to come right to that sidewall where it should. All right, you guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our community, get all of this free education, and learn how to do nails with us. So let's go back to our prep now. And I'm going to set my customized nail right here in front of me. I want to make sure that that is the one that I'm using. So I'm going to set that right down in front of me here so I don't lose that. And then we'll go back with our electric file. And I'm going to change out my sanding band. I always want to make sure that I'm putting a brand new sanding band on. So this way it's got the proper amount of grit to it. And you also know that this way it is going to be a nice, clean, sanitary bit so that you're not using a used bit on a client. So replace that sanding band. I'm going to turn my e-file to about 5,000 RPMs. And let me shift a few things around here real quick. Okay. So when we do our prep, all I'm going to do is just work very gently. I'm just basically making contact with my bit to the nail and then working right up around that cuticle area. So you can see I've just gone through, just kind of lightly buffed that surface. And then once I get to this corner, I'm going to start to feather my bit all the way through the rest of the length of that nail. And all this is going to do is it's just going to remove the shine from the nail. And what that shine is really is basically oils in the surface of the nail. And we are just trying to break up those oils on the surface. We're not trying to file away any of that natural nail. We're not trying to go through and damage this nail, just very lightly buffing that surface to remove the shine and create just a small amount of texture. Once we have that nail textured, slight texture to it, actually you guys, I'm going to grab a clean brush here. And we're going to dust off this nail. So go through, dust off the nail, get all of the dust off of the sides of the nail, all of the dust from up around that cuticle area, all of the dust from down in those sidewalls, making sure that that nail is nice and clean. Once we have the dust off of there, we're going to use our swipe. And swipe is the blue liquid. And this is our cleanser. So we're going to pump a little bit of this onto our manicure brush. And what this is going to do, this is going to go through and it's going to basically change the pH of the nail. It's going to cleanse off any of those extra oils that may still be on there. And it's also going to take care of any germs or bacteria that are left on the nail. So you always want to make sure that you're giving the nail a really good cleanse with the swipe so that you know that you're going to be applying your tip onto a really good, clean, balanced surface and you're not going to have to worry about any germs or bacteria or anything like that. Now at this point, I'm going to use the dry end of my brush, and I'm just going to dust out the well of my tip just to make sure that there's no dust in there. And you guys, again, I did say use the dry end. So I had swipe on the top part of my brush. Now I'm going to use the base of the brush to clean out that tip because I don't want that swipe to get onto our tip. Swipe has a little bit of acetone, and acetone can start to kind of dull down the tip, and we don't want that. So that's why I used the dry end of my brush. So our nail is nice and clean, our tip is nice and clean. We are ready to get to the application. But before we actually apply the tip, we want to use our bonder. And we're going to use Protein Bond. Protein Bond works like a double-sided tape. So wherever you put the Protein Bond, it's going to leave a sticky surface. So I'm going to start by applying one coat from the center of the nail, brushing out to the sides, and then I'm going to work back towards that cuticle. And the reason that I start from the center and then work back towards the cuticle is so that I don't flood this product onto the nail. If you were to take your brush and just lift that straight up, there is quite a bit of Protein Bond in that brush. And if I were to put that on the nail, that's going to flood into the cuticles and into the sidewalls. And even though this is not an acid-based primer, there's no acid to this primer or to this bonder at all, it still is a chemical, and you want to make sure that you're keeping any chemical off of the skin. So what I do is I'm going to tap off some of that extra, and then I'll brush that onto the nail. So again, starting from the center, working out to the sides, and then back to the cuticle. And yep, I do 2 coats of the Protein Bond when I'm adhering my tips. I also use Protein Bond, 2 coats of Protein Bond when I am applying acrylics or hard gels. Usually I'll just do 1 coat of Protein Bond if I'm doing just a regular gel manicure, but 2 for enhancements just to make sure that we've got great adhesion. Now the other thing that I'm going to do, you're going to notice that the well of my tip is pre-etched, but I'm going to take a coat of my Protein Bond into that well. So wherever I'm going to adhere my tip onto the nail, I'm going to apply that coat of Protein Bond. And you can see that it actually kind of makes that a little bit more clear. But this, again, you guys, it's not an acid primer, so it's not going to etch the surface. But all it's going to do is it's going to leave a really, really sticky surface, and this is going to really adhere to our tip and jewel adhesive. And it's also going to give us a little bit more of a clear tip. So it's going to help to make it just look a little bit nicer too. But having that extra coat of Protein Bond in the well is really going to help to adhere your tip and jewel adhesive. So speaking of, we're going to take our tip and jewel adhesive, and let me find my tool here. So the tool that I'm using, this is our dual-ended brush and spatula. So on one end, we take the brush or the cover off, we've got a spatula. On the other end, we take the cover off and we've got a brush. So I'm going to use the spatula end to this. Now, I've seen people, and even Greg does this, sometimes I see people and they'll use the end of their tip to just kind of scoop out some of that gel, which it's a great technique. If it works for you, that's fantastic. Personally, I'm actually going to use this little bit. What I like to do instead is I like to use my my little spatula here to scoop out the amount of product that I need. And the reason for this is because if I were to just scoop that product out, I don't have as much control as to where it goes. And a lot of times when I have product all the way from side to side, it can squeeze out the edges. So that's why I like to use my spatula, scoop that out, and then I can adhere that exactly where I want it. Let me come in a little closer. So when I apply my tip and jewel adhesive, I will set that right down into the well of the nail, slide that back, and then I use the edge of my spatula to kind of just press that or slide that over to the sides. Maybe we'll bring a little bit more over to this side here. I'm not bringing it all the way to the edge though. You're going to notice if you look really close, there's just kind of a hairline of space all the way around the side. So this way, when I put my tip on, it's not going to squeeze out those edges, okay? So let me show you really quickly before we actually apply this. If we take this nail and look at it from the side, to apply the tip, we're going to start at a slight downward angle, And you're going to notice that I'm not right at my cuticle area. I start a little ways away. Let me come in a little closer. So I start a little ways away from that cuticle area, set it down and slide it back. That way, if I do have any of that glue or of that gel squeeze out behind that tip, I can move my tip over that so that that gel isn't adhering and touching the nail or touching the skin, sorry. So again, start at a slight downward angle, touch it down, slide back, and then you're gonna rock that nail down, and then you're gonna start to see that adhesive adhere. So let's go back to the straight on view. So now you guys can watch as I apply this. Whoops, one thing before I forget, I'm gonna just set my tip off to the side here, but I want to grab my, let me show you guys this, what I've got here. So I'm gonna grab my Touch Cure curing light. And what this is just a small, basically a mini curing light. So I can turn the power on there. You can see that the light comes on. This is going to cure and basically freeze my tip into place. So I use this to set the tips into place, and then I will fully cure them all the way in the full UV LED. But having this one here ready to go is going to make things much easier to basically set them into place. So let's come back here and come in nice and close here. Again, you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, join our community, get free education, learn all the fun stuff about nails. All right, we're gonna start, like I was saying, a little ways away from the cuticle area. Set that tip down onto the nail, and you can see that gel just connect to that natural nail. Slide that tip back, and you can leave just a little bit of space so that you're not touching that cuticle, and then slowly start to rock that nail down. And you're gonna start to see that gel adhere, and it's gonna press out any air bubbles as you're rocking that tip down. So again, just sliding that down, rocking that down, and we're gonna press that all the way down. Actually, I'm gonna slide that a little closer to my cuticle. I'm gonna hold that right down there. And again, pressing that gel all the way to the end. So you're gonna see that gel come all the way to the end. And I can adjust anything if I need to, make sure that it's nice and straight on there. I'm gonna just hold that there. And this is where I'm gonna use that Touch Cure light. So at this point, let me come out, you can see I've got my Touch Cure light turned on. This is just basically going to freeze this tip on into place. Now I am holding that with my own nail here. It's gonna freeze the product all the way around here, and then I can lift up, and then this way it's gonna freeze the whole thing. Now notice that I don't have the tip right up here underneath the nail, or sorry, the nail up right up underneath the light. I do start with it probably a good, I would say 4 to 6 inches away, so that I don't get an instant heat spike when this is curing, okay? You wanna make sure that you're keeping that nail a little bit away from the light so that you don't feel that extra heat. Now again, we're gonna just freeze that into place for maybe 20 seconds or so. And then if you were doing a full set, you would move on to the next nail, adhere that next one, freeze it into place. Adhere the next one, freeze it into place. Adhere the next one, freeze it into place. When you have all of those nails on and just kind of set into place, then you're gonna put that hand into the full-sized UV LED light, and you're gonna turn that on for a full 60 seconds. This way it's gonna cure all of those nails into place, and it's gonna fully cure that tip and jewel adhesive, and then the nails will be set. Now, once those nails are set, then we can do whatever we want to do on top. Again, yesterday, you guys, I showed you how to use the cream clays over the top, and you can use a regular gel polish over the top. You can do art and design work. You can, if you want to, you can put acrylic over them. You can put hard gel over them. Today, what we're going to use is our slick pour colors. And we're going to do a fun St. Patty's kind of a design. So I've actually got 2 of our green slick pour powders. Now slick pour was originally designed to be used as, you can see it says our dip powder system. So these were originally a dip system. They can be used with acrylic liquid and be used as acrylic. They are an ultrafine acrylic powder. But today we're going to be using them with our conversion gels. So our conversion base and top. So you can see on there, so that it'll say conversion base and conversion top. And we're going to be applying these like a dip but we're going to be using the gel rather than just a regular resin. And the reason that I like to use the conversion and the gel is because I feel like the conversion tends to have a little bit more flexibility, and I can really get a nice flexible application over my tip here. All right, our nail is cured out. It's ready to go. But what I like to do at this point is, again, go back to our customizing, because you guys, I always say tips are a one size fits most. So they're not going to fit every client perfectly. So sometimes I need to go back and maybe I'll clean up my lower arch a little bit. Maybe if anything was hanging off the edges, I can just kind of file that off those edges. I can taper the edges in if I need to. So I'm just using that 180 file buffer combo again and just kind of cleaning up my lower arch. If you need to clip them any shorter, just grab your tip cutter. You can take a little bit or a lot off the end, however you want to. So either clip that off the end. If you don't have a tip cutter, you can just use a regular, I like to use the straight edge toenail clippers and just do one clip on one side and a clip on the other side. And that way you can shorten that up nice and easy. I'm going to go through and shape that. Now, I want you guys to see something. When I'm filing, especially on these longer nails, if I wasn't really securing that natural nail, that tip is going to kind of wobble all the way through that nail. So I'm going to just hold that tip right through here. This way I can file and get a really nice straight free edge, and it's not going to wobble back and forth. And that wobble can kind of be uncomfortable for your client. So I like to just hold that nail, make sure that it's nice and stable. And I am going to just taper in my free edge a little bit. I know we're looking for a nice straight square nail, but I personally like to taper them in just a little bit so that they don't look wide, they don't look flared out. And as I'm filing my sidewalls here, I am balancing. So you saw me use my thumb on the left side while I was filing the right side. So I'm putting pressure on the right side, but pressure on the left side. So again, that nail is not going to be wobbling back and forth. Same thing on the right side, put pressure on the right side while I'm filing on the left side. So again, you can customize these tips. You can shorten them. You can shape them to whatever shape you want. But we do have a couple of different styles. We've got almond shape, which is what I've got on. We've got the coffin shape. We've got, oh, you guys, we've got a whole bunch of different ones. I can't remember. Oops, don't pop your client's fingers off. Now, you guys, the reason that the nail came off, did you see how I slid that plastic back on? The reason that the nail popped off was because I had accidentally was sliding that, that plastic off. So make sure that that plastic is on. If you're working on the trainer hands, make sure that plastic is on and make sure that you click that nail in there 3 times. That way it's going to stay in there nice while you are filing. And that's not going to happen on a real client, so don't worry about that. Okay, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go through and we're going to taper in that cuticle area a little bit. If you take a look here, you can see that, again, we didn't put that, that tip all the way back to the cuticle area so that we don't get any product on the skin. But we have a little bit of a ledge here, and we don't want our client picking at that ledge. So I'm going to take my electric file, and let me come back out just a little bit. And we're going to use our electric file at, I would say, about 6,000 RPMs. And I'm just going to come right up around that cuticle area, and we're going to just taper in. Now notice I'm only filing on the plastic. I'm not filing back on that natural nail. Just filing on that plastic tip. And this is going to help to thin out that tip, taper that down so it's going to be nice and flush down to that natural nail. Come back one more time here. And you can still do this with your hand file if you want to, if you don't use the electric file yet. But I will tell you, using the electric file, once you've learned how to use it, it can really be your best friend when you're doing nails because it's much easier on your hands, your wrists, your arms, your shoulders, all of that. It's going to be much easier than trying to do everything by hand. So a lot of times people say, well, can't I just do that with the hand file? You can. You absolutely can. But personally, anything that I can do with my electric file, I'm going to do that rather than by hand. Because again, if I'm sitting here doing nails in the salon or you know, however many hours a day you're working on nails, you want to take care of your body. You want to take care of your hands and your wrists and your shoulders and arms. So doing things the safest way possible is always going to be best. So at this point, we've tapered that down. I don't have any ridge by my cuticle area anymore. But now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to feather through, remove the shine, just like we did when we were prepping that natural nail. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're going to be putting our slick pour dip powder over the surface of this, but we're going to be using a gel to adhere it. And that gel isn't going to want to stick to that shiny surface of the tip. So that's why I want to make sure that I've gone all the way through this nail, making sure to completely remove the shine, and I think we're looking good here. So we're going to go back, we're going to dust off this nail again, just like we did when we were prepping. Dust that off. Now it looks like I've got a little bit more of that tip that kind of came off the side. So in order to get right up into that edge, it's a little tricky to use that 180 file buffer that we were using because it's got a little bit of thickness to it. To come in on that edge, I'm going to switch over to one of my 150 files, and I'm going to be able to get that right up, right along that edge there, making sure that's nice and tight down in there. Now, you guys, make sure when you're using your files, I didn't show you guys this, but always use another file, and I always have this one. This is my prep file. All I use it for is prepping my old files, or prepping my new files, I should say. Make sure that you run a file across the edge of that brand new file and just slightly angle it on the side so you're catching that edge right through here, right through the top surface, and then right through this corner over here. So that way you're going to take off those sharp edges and you're not going to worry about cutting skin. And I've already prepped this one, so it's nice and smooth on those sides, so I don't have to worry about that. But I did want to show you because when you are getting up close around these edges and things like that, you do want to make sure that you're not going to be cutting your client's skin or your skin if you're working on yourself. So always, again, keep everything safe, keep everything from cutting, keep product off the skin and around those cuticles. Okay, I think we are good here. Now, let's go back. We'll dust off this nail one more time. If you feel that you need to cleanse this nail, we don't necessarily have to, but if you do feel like you need to cleanse it to get rid of some of that extra dust, before when we cleansed the natural nail, we used Swipe. Swipe is great for cleansing the natural nail, but I would actually recommend using ManiQ Cleanser to clean off the surface of our tip. I was telling you earlier that Swipe does have a little bit of acetone to it, and if you use acetone or anything that contains acetone, it's going to smooth out that surface that we just put so much work into to remove. So we want that texture, so we don't want to use the Swipe to smooth that out. ManiQ Cleanser does not have any acetone to it, so it's going to leave a nice clean surface, but it's not going to smooth out that surface. So we'll just grab a little bit. I don't want to overuse this, but just enough to clean that nail. Yeah, maybe just a little bit more. Take one more pump there. Okay. So going through, cleaning that nail, clean that dust off. Whoops, you guys, I slid my finger back off of here again. There we go. All right, so that nail is nice and clean. We are ready to go. We're ready to apply our slick pour. One thing though, we always want to use that protein bond. That protein bond, I always say when in, and same thing, we're going to start in the cuticle and then all the way down the rest of that free edge. So we're going to make sure that we've got a nice sticky surface with our protein bond, and then we can do our application. So first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to get my powders ready. Now the colors that I have today are Snake Charmer. Snake Charmer is a really pretty kind of a dark green. So that's the first color that I'm going to use. I'm going to do one coat of the dark green, and then I'm going to do a coat of our green glitter. So the green glitter is called Giant Blitz. There we go, Giant Blitz. So Snake Charmer and Giant Blitz. Now you could do 2 coats of your glitter application. You could do 2 coats of just your solid color. But I actually like the combination of 1 coat of the dark and then 1 coat of the glitter because I think it gives the base color a little bit more of a solid color. If I were to just use my glitter application, it might be a little bit more sheer than what I want for this look. So we're going to work with both of those colors, and we're going to start with a coat of our conversion base gel. This is a soft gel. Let me come in a little bit closer for you. So we're going to take our conversion base. We're going to brush on. I'm going to start right up at my cuticle area. I'm going to press my brush down, and I press that brush down and get it to kind of fan out. Let me come in a little closer so you can see this a little bit more clearly. All right. So press that brush down, get it to fan out a little bit, and then I push back towards that cuticle area. Give it a little bit of a wiggle if you need to, and then pull all the way through the rest of that free edge. Brushing out in a nice even layer all the way through, making sure you get all the way to your edges. And if you need to, come back to that cuticle area. Now remember, this still is a chemical. This still is product that we want to keep off of the skin. So you don't want to try to get too close, but get as close as you can. Then we're going to take our, let me see if I can find it. I'm going to use this is just a little cuticle pusher scoop. It is clean, so make sure that you're using a clean scoop, not something that you've already pushed back their cuticles with. So use a clean scoop, and just going to scoop up a little bit of that powder. I'm going to start by kind of sprinkling that up around my cuticles, down along my sides, basically to seal in those edges. And then we can go through and sprinkle that through the rest of the nail. Now I'm going to check, see how let me come in a little closer. I want to make sure that I've got product all the way to my edges. So if you need to turn that nail on the side, turn that nail on the side, catch those edges, make sure everything has color on it. So this is going to start to absorb into our gel. Give it just a second to absorb, and then you're going to tap off that extra. Now we're going to get this back into the light, and I'm going to get this in there, and then I'll show you guys what I'm doing. So go into our light. Okay, so that's going to go into our light. That's going to cure for a minimum of 30 seconds. Now, if you're working on two hands, if you're working on a client, I would recommend keeping this in there for a full minute just to make sure that it's curing all the way through, especially if you're working with darker colors. You want to make sure that the gel is curing all the way through. But with this color, I think we're going to be good with 30 seconds in there. And then we'll open up our other glitter. Which one was this? Giant Blitz. And these are actually colored acrylics. So the green is a colored acrylic. The glitter one, this one it's acrylic powder. It's an ultrafine acrylic powder, but it has glitter mixed in. So this one doesn't have actual pigment to it, but it does have glitter. And anytime you're working with glitter, I always like to make sure that I've mixed that up. So that way the glitter and the acrylic powder that are in there are really well combined. Sometimes when you're working with glitter, the powder itself, the acrylic powder, will settle to the bottom and then the glitter will rise to the top. So by stirring it up a little bit, that's going to give it a really good mix to make sure everything is combined. Now, before we add our next coat, I'm going to dust off any of that extra dust that didn't cure on there. And we'll go back to our conversion base coat. We're going to do a second coat, just like we did that first one, as close to the cuticle as we can get without touching. Flow that all the way through, all the way down our sides. And we'll grab a little bit more because this is a longer nail. We need a little more product. And this is a reason that you do charge extra for extra long nails, because you are going to use basically double the product that you would use on a shorter, more active length nail. So make sure if you're doing this in salon that you are charging extra for these longer nails. So we'll grab our second coat here, same thing, up around those edges, up around that cuticle area, all the way down around those edges, and then all the way through the whole body of that nail. And sometimes I will add a little more than I think that it's going to need, just to really make sure that I've got good coverage over that whole nail. And again, tap off any of that extra. We'll get this back into the light for another 30 seconds, freeze that into place. And we'll close up our powders here. Now, you guys, I know you're probably commenting in the chat, look at all that color that's wasted. Normally, I have a little portion cup that I will sprinkle that into, so that way you can reuse that. But today I lost my little other portion cup, so I didn't have that. But you can sprinkle it into that cup and then reuse that cup on your client here as well. All right, after this one cures, which it is now, we'll come back and one more time we're going to dust off any extra dust or any extra acrylic powder or any glitter that is not quite cured out. So now you can see we've got that beautiful dark emerald kind of sparkly green, and you could just top coat this at this point and you'll be good for St. Patty's Day. But let's add a little bit more fun to this nail. Because it's St. Patty's Day, we need a St. Patty's Day, not nay, St. Patty's Day, we need a little bit of luck of the Irish. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of a design over the top of this. So in order to do a design, I want a nice flat, even surface. So I'm going to apply one more coat of my conversion base, and whether or not you're doing a design, whether you're doing a design or not, I would always go through, do another coat of our conversion base, and then you can do your top coat. So if you're not doing any kind of design work, still do your conversion base all the way through like I am, cure it, and then you can do your top coat of choice. But because we're doing a design, I'm going to cure this one for, I'd say for 30 seconds at the minimum. We'll go ahead and do 30 seconds here, okay? Now, if you didn't get your slick pour, your powders evenly applied, or maybe there's a little bit of a rough surface, I'm going to show you how you would clean that up. So if you do have to do a little bit of filing, make sure that the nail does cure in the light here for a full 60 seconds, and then we can do a little bit of cleanup. So to do that, let me find my buffer here. Oops. Okay. Now, at this point, this is really where you would check the nail. You can take a look. It actually looks like it's fairly smooth, fairly even. I think I got my application pretty right on. So on this one, I don't need to do any filing or buffing or smoothing out. If I did, I would take my ManiQ Cleanser. Okay, that same thing that we cleaned the tip off. I would use this. I would cleanse the nail with a lint-free wipe. So I would put a little bit of that on there. I would go through, cleanse off that tacky surface, because there's a tacky surface when that conversion base coat dries. And then you could go through with your file buffer. You can straighten out any sides. You can buff over the surface if you need to. Anything that you need to do to smooth that out. And then cleanse it one more time. Apply a coat of your protein bond, and then apply a coat of your top coat of choice. Okay, that is what you would need to do if you do need to file or buff. We don't need to do that. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm actually going to apply a coat of my matte tack-free top coat. When I'm doing this design, I like to have more of that matte surface, and this way I can paint in my design and get a really nice crisp design. You could use a top coat. You could just do your design right over that filed or buffed surface, and that would work as just fine too. Personal preference. So if you do need to file and buff, you can file and buff and then do your design. Otherwise, just do your coat of matte top coat. And then this one I am going to cure for a full 60 seconds. So this way it's going to cure all the way through. And then we're going to have a beautiful matte finish to work on top of. And you guys, this will give you another chance to hit that subscribe button while our nail is curing, join our community, get free education, get all of this fun stuff. I'm going to just fold my table towel over here to cover up all of that powder because I don't want that interfering in my design at this point. So I've got just a little art palette tile, and I'm going to use our Mission Control gel paint, and the color I'm using is Fizz. So this is our white. And let's grab our spatula. So this is the same brush and spatula combo that I was using before. I'm going to clean off that tip and jewel adhesive that was on there. And let's see, Victoria's asking, Karen, can we see your nails real quick? You guys, so this hand, I did this hand on myself off camera. This is all full cover tips. So just like we did on our application today, and one of our jewels applied with our tip and jewel adhesive. And this one I did yesterday online here on live stream for you guys. These are my nails that I've been on now, I think almost 3 weeks. If you want to see how I did this design, we do have a video where I did show this demo. So check that out here on our YouTube channel under the live tab. So all of our demos, all of the live streams that we show here live, we do repost them so that you guys can see and rewatch those as needed. So let's get into our design. So I'm going to take a little bit of that fizz, so a little bit of that white gel paint. We'll put that right down onto our tile. And then I'm going to use, and this is a personal preference, you guys, whatever brushes you like to use, but I'm going to grab my, couple of different things here. I'm going to grab my, this is our micro detailer brush. So you can see that teeny tiny little brush there. I'm also going to maybe use my liner brush. So let me compare those two for you. So the micro detailer is a teeny tiny brush. The liner brush is a little bit larger. It looks like I bent one of those bristles in there, but that's okay. We'll make it work. And then I'm also using a dotting tool. And you guys, you can use, if you don't have a dotting tool, you can use a toothpick, or you can even use the end of your brush. So this little, the little end down there, you can use that. So nothing really fancy on this, but we're going to do a really cute little clover on here. So have a little luck of the Irish. And I'm going to start by using the larger end of my dotting tool. And really what we're going to do is create a couple of little hearts. So to create our hearts, let me come in nice and close so you guys can see. We're going to do 2 dots for our top heart. I'm going to do 2 dots for my side heart. And I'm going to do 2 dots on the other side for my heart. Now you guys are probably looking at this thinking, I don't see hearts in this, but I'm going to grab my micro detailer. I'm going to take a little bit of the paint. There we go. A little bit of the paint that I've got on my tile, kind of roll my brush through that just to load up that brush. And then I'm going to start dragging these little dots towards the center. So kind of envision the center point right in the middle there. So I'm going to just drag these little dots right into the center. And this is how it's going to create our heart. Now, are we actually going to use hearts on this? No, but this is how I create my my little shamrocks, my little clovers. So just dragging those in towards the center and just kind of connecting those little dots and just bring those together right in the middle. So that's going to be our first heart. We're going to come back. I'm going to grab a little bit more paint. I'm actually going to kind of move myself off to the other side, and then I'm going to turn my brush around. So from here, I was pulling my brush in this direction. Now I'm actually going to turn my hand and come from the other side. So this way I can pull towards the center here. So pulling in those little dots, connecting. Actually, I'm going to come from this way again. Connecting those little hearts into the center. And then I can basically just connect those 2 sides. So I still leave it a little bit of that heart shape, but not really a heart, if that makes any sense. Okay, and then we're going to come in, pull those top 2 hearts or top 2 dots together to create our little shamrock. Now, as you're working, you guys, you can do as many of these little shamrocks on the nail as you want. You can create larger shamrocks, you can create smaller ones, but once I get this how I like it, I'm really liking how that's looking. I'm going to move all of my gel paints away, and I'm going to grab that Touch Cure light again. So that same light that I used to freeze my tip into place, I'm going to turn this one on, and I'm just going to set that color for just a few seconds. I would say probably maybe 10 to 20 seconds. This way, it's going to set that gel paint into place. It's going to set that design into place. So if something happens where maybe as you're doing the rest of the design, you may think that, well, I like how this looks, but I don't like the rest. This is set into place. You can wipe the rest of it off until you, or once you cure it, until you cure it. You got that. So I freeze this into place so this way I can move on to my next step or next part of my design, and I can adjust as needed and change it up if I need to. All right, we're gonna take our liner, or sorry, not the liner, this is still my micro detailer. And I'm gonna just, again, kind of drag that brush, roll that brush through the paint, pick up a little bit of that paint, and then we're gonna create a little stem on our shamrock. So I'm gonna set that down, kind of wind that down, maybe just pull in a cute little direction there. And actually, we'll see how this goes. I may decide that I don't like that there. In fact, at this point, I'm going to take that off because I'm not quite sure. I'm going to add one more little shamrock on here. So at this point, I don't love that, but because I already froze that first part into place, I can remove that second part. So let's add in maybe a second little shamrock here. Yeah, maybe off to the side. So I'm going to use the smaller end of my dotting tool, and we'll create a little bit of a smaller, teeny tiny little shamrock. But the same thing, we're going to do those tiny little 2 dots on the top, 2 dots on the side, 2 dots on the other side, and then using that micro detailer, load that up with the gel paint, bring those in towards the center, connect those to create our little heart look, and then connect those right through the center. Same thing, take a little bit more of that gel paint, draw that right into the middle. And you guys, sometimes as I do my detail work like this, I have a hard time talking and doing my designs at the same time. So if I stop talking, I apologize. My brain just tends to stop working. And sometimes I need to actually take a breath. Sometimes I get a little bit shaky when I'm doing detail work like this. You can start to see I'm a little bit shaky. But what can help is to maybe stop for just a second, take a deep breath, shake out your hands, because sometimes as we're doing detail work like this, we're really holding our art brushes really tight, and that really makes your hand kind of tense up. So if you just take a second, if you do feel like you are starting to get a little bit shaky, take a second, take a deep breath, and relax your hands, shake out your hands maybe a little bit, so that way you can come back and have a little bit more of a steady hand. So same thing though, dragging those little hearts into the center. And I think I'm liking how that's looking. Maybe just a little bit. I think I need a little bit more of a dot on this edge. Round that out a little bit. And then again, drag that back in. Okay, I think this is looking cute. What do you guys think? Are you liking the shamrocks? Let me know in the chat. Give me a little, I know you guys put some little green hearts into the chat there a little bit ago, so show some love if you're liking the little shamrocks. But again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to freeze this into place using my Touch Cure Light, just for, like I said, maybe about 10 to 20 seconds or so, just enough to set that into place. And I think we're good with that. So now at this point, let me see, I think I'm going to stick with my micro detailer. And then we're going to, again, just drag my brush through that paint, load that up, kind of spinning my brush as I go through that paint. Pick up a little bit of extra, and then we're going to just drag down a cute little swirl all the way down that nail. Pick up a little bit more. Let's give our second little shamrock a little stem, and I think we're good there. So at this point, I do need to set that last little section into place, so we'll use our Touch Cure Light one more time, freeze that into place, And then I am going to top coat this. So you guys, you are ready for top coat at this point. So if you know what you're supposed to do, go ahead and start the top coat chant. Those that are new to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, join our community, and now you can start our top coat chant in the chat. Now, at this point, I could put a coat of protein bond on, and actually I could have put a coat of protein bond, or did I put a coat of protein bond? No, I used my matte top coat. Never mind. You guys, I got ahead of myself. I used the matte top coat underneath this, so my design is going to adhere to that just fine, and then I can apply my top coat over this for a shiny look, and so either way is going to work just fine. So whatever top coat you want to work with, I've got my conversion top coat. You could use your ultimate finish top coat. You could use your ManiQ top coat, whichever one you want to work with at this point, you're good to go. And because we had that matte finish top coat, we don't need that extra coat of protein bond over that. But if you did put a coat of protein bond on, that is just fine. Just going to have a little bit more adhesion. So we've got our top coat on there. We're going to get this into the light. This one we're going to cure for a full 60 seconds because we're using the conversion. And you guys, I have old packaging on this. The new packaging has the YN logo on there. So conversion, if you have the old caption, it is the same as conversion. But with the conversion top coat, that is a soft gel top coat, and it is going to cure with a tacky surface. So we do need to cleanse that tacky surface. And just like we were using before to cleanse, we're going to use our ManiQ Cleanser, and that's going to help to remove that tacky finish. So we're going to grab one of our lint-free wipes. We'll pump a little bit of that up onto our lint-free wipe. We'll give this just another 15 seconds or so, and then we'll cleanse that off. Now I am going to check around my edges just to make sure if I have maybe any little rough edges. Because we had that glitter on there, sometimes you get a little bit of a rough edge around, around those edges. So it's okay, but I'm going to show you how to clean that up. But first we'll use our ManiQ Cleanser, cleanse off that tacky finish. Keep your nail in the, in the trainer hand. So cleanse off that tacky finish. And then if you need to, you can run that 180 file buffer combo. I'm going to start with my file, run that around those edges, make sure I don't have any rough edges, straighten out that free edge a little bit if I need to, and then I'm going to flip over and use that buffer side to really make sure everything is nice and smooth. All right, so we've got our fun little shamrocks over our full cover extra long square nail today. So you guys, happy St. Patty's Day coming up. Hopefully you guys give this design a try. If you do, make sure that you tag us in it. Post it on your social media, tag Young Nails so that we can see. And you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.